That container was able to produce about 1,600 pounds a day, which at the beginning was amazing. We were like, oh, like this is a nice result. Like for the first approach, it was amazing. But then, over time, you figured out that you have a lot of issues with fodder, especially with mold. Like it's something like very hard to avoid because you have so many factors that happen, like control the humidity, the temperature, the airflow, see what is the seed supply. So you have to follow so many things. And at the end, the mold was something that really affected our project there.
So Joaquin Gonzalez, Chief Expansion Officer at Eleusis Feed. Thank you so much for joining me on the Vertical Farming Podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Harry, for the invitation. Happy to be here.
So remind me again how we got connected. I think you mentioned you had a conversation with my partner, Sepper.
Yes, I did. I've been reading agro news for a long time, and I got to know Sepper because of it. I read the author of these different articles with Fodder, and I was like, yeah, let's connect with this guy. And I sent him an invitation on LinkedIn. We connect. He was in Dubai, so it was a little bit hard to synchronize our calendars, but very good guy. Yeah, I like him a lot.
So how far back can you trace your experience with being involved in some way or another in like agriculture?
Well, so my background is in agriculture.
Yeah.
I was the agriculture engineer in Chile. I always was related to farming, livestock, like feed, like something that intrigued me a lot was feed systems,
Okay.
how to eat the cattle and horses and different animals, right? And I studied that in Chile. And I was always like looking for some innovations. Like I'm an agriculture as a professional, but I'm an entrepreneur from the heart, you know.
What got you into agriculture? Why did you decide to study that?
So we, as a family, we had a ranch close to Santiago
Okay.
that I spent most of my life over there.
Okay.
Like I was raised and born in Santiago, but in the ranch every other weekend, if it's not every weekend, where I spend a lot of time like riding horses, like being with cattle, like raising different type of animals over there. Yeah, it was like it always like being related to it, like so, yeah.
Was there an expectation growing up in families and based on conversations I've had with previous founders who grew up either on a farm or on a ranch, is there an expectation that you'll carry on the legacy of the family? I don't know if it was a business or just a ranch, but do you hear that a lot or is that expected?
It was no, I mean I'm the third of seven
Okay.
siblings. Most of them are engineers.
Okay.
My dad is an engineer, and this was like a family ranch for pleasure and for business as
Okay.
well. Yeah, I was always like it's something that really motivate me since little. Was the horses. Like was I since I have a memory, I was over south, riding around, and it was always fun to me to be around like break horses, like teach them how to ride. And I love like shoulder, so I got
Okay.
into the equestrian world. I did some show jumping. I won a couple of championships over there, but at the end, you have to have horses, you have to have a trainer and all the stuff. And it was something that from there, I transitioned into another sport because it was too expensive. And being one of seven,
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I was the only one like obsessed with horses and stuff. So I pushed that dream again, aside, and I focused on other sports. But then after college, actually, I picked it up again and started riding again. I won another championship and again, set furry. Like it was everything about like having a horse and having a train with feed and all this stuff that gets complicated over time. So, but that is something that I have in my heart that at some point I will do it for sure.
Everyone that I've spoken to, and I've had conversations with people who have been around horses since they were little, who've raised horses, they all say the same thing. Like you develop this bond with your horse that's
Mhm.
incredibly special. They're so smart, they're so intelligent. And when you get to know them, they get to know you. And there's this symbiosis that happens between you and the horse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, as I said, like completely obsessed with them. At some point, I was like making drawings of horses. and figured out like how they feed them, and what is the best way to keep them, taking care of them, and all the stuff. And yeah, I see why some people that have like boarding facilities and stuff like that, wow, and they can treat like mental health and stuff, because it really helps to be attached with animals in general, but horses, it has something special.
And did you see, having raised horses from such a long time, how much things have changed with advances and what horses are fed? Obviously we're going to get into the fodder, but I imagine so much has changed since you were a boy.
Well, there's so many things for sure. I mean, the nutrition of a horse, depending on the performance of the horse, what type of athlete it is, if it's a race horse, if it's a jumping horse, if it's a polo or enduro and stuff like that, it's always different. And there's so many things out there to supplement these horses that, I mean, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes because there's so many things, so many vitamins that you can put on their rations. And yeah, fodder, as you said, we're going to go over that later on, but it's something that really helps the horses. I've like firsthand experienced on some colleague episodes in horses. And with fodder is something that you can solve it right away.
Okay.
You adding fodder to their diet, it acts like a lubricant of the digestion tract and the gut health. It's much better, so you avoid these polyps in them. So
Was your experience with ecoforage, was that the first experience with working directly with fodder?
though, yes, you do well your research. All right. Yeah. So after I graduated from school, there was a big drought in the northern region of my country.
Okay.
Big drought, like big mess. Like a lot of animals were dying because of it. Like animals were moving to the south. In the south of Chile, we have a lot of water, a lot of land, a lot of hay. So it was up to the point that the government got involved. They were moving water around. They were moving animals from one side to another to make them survive. And a lot of ranchers were forced to call up their herds as well. Like being out of college, just graduated, I was like, how we can solve this shit? How can I put my grain of sand in this issue? How we can produce fodder or produce forage or grass or feed for animals in a sustainable way, in a way that you can control the inputs, getting away of the climate itself. And that's how like hydroponic fodder showed up. And I started looking around which companies are the best around the world and see, because in Chile, we didn't have any hydroponic fodder systems there. So I imported my first equipment, and that's how like Ecotherapy started. And I partnered with Mike's partner, and this guy was the commercial side, and I was the more technical side of it. So we imported our first equipment from China. It was super hard to manage.
Yeah.
I mean, super hard to assemble, put it together. It cost me like 6 months in order to have like actual real good fodder out of it. It's very hard to work with the Chinese, but on the flip side, I learned a lot. Like it's something that with that experience, give me so many things, so many insights about how to produce this feed, And with that, I formulated my own designs into containers, with inside containers. This container, at some point when I got my first commercial design, it was a container that you open both sides of the container. And in Chile, we don't have like these extreme temperatures like here, like everything outside will freeze, So I had all the equipment to control the environment inside the container. I had it outside. Same with the water tank and different things. And I opened one door, so you see it, and you have one hole in the middle, and you see his racks. Basically, are like 8 shelves, and you sit from one side, and you push the trays to the other side, and you harvest on the other side of the container. And that container was able to produce about pounds, is about 1,600 pounds a day, which at the beginning was amazing. We were like, this is a nice result. Like for the first approach, it was amazing. But then, over time, you figured out that you have a lot of issues with fodder, especially with mold. Like it's something like very hard to avoid because you have so many factors that happen, like control the humidity, the temperature, the airflow, see what is the seed supply. So you have to follow so many things. And at the end, the mold was something that really affected our project there.
Is that something that you just had to figure out on your as it happened? There was no guidance. There was nothing probably you could read online at the time.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff out there, like how to avoid the mold. There, some people say that you have to put a lot of bleach in the water. There's some strategies out there to use hydrogen peroxide and different things. You have to be very rigorous to offset the cleaning of everything. But at some point, if you don't control the environment very well and very precisely, it's something that mold will happen and we will appear anyways. So we manufactured one, and then we put together a manufacturer in Santiago that was closer to my house. And then I honestly, like, I signed a contract with a group that has some horses over there. And we couldn't figure it out, that mold issue. We couldn't. So it was like, I don't want to sell something that at some point would generate mold and will, could kill a horse. And those horses are not like cheap. So it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So we decided with the group and with investors to put that project on hold. And then I was like, okay, this is something I really dream about. Like, let's do the Fodder somewhere else. And then I worked for 2 different companies, made another company too with another partner, nothing related to agriculture. But then I had the opportunity to move to the US. And I was always like in the back of my mind was like, this is something that I had to fix, And then I studied in Colorado. I moved to Boulder with my wife. I studied over there, CU. And then looking around like some organizations in the ag industry, I found Farmbox Foods.
Okay.
Which by then they had like 2 different, which is a containerized. Well, you know them. They are a containerized manufacturer where they had at that point vertical farming with like leafy greens and stuff, and then they had mushroom farm, and then they hired me to put together the fodder system, the hydroponic fodder farm, and I had a very good experience with them. They were like super open, and when I met the CEO, went to the farms. I got into one of the farms and I saw all these like different technology of how to control the environment. So inside these containers, I was like, yes, I'm pretty sure that with this I can fix the issue.
Yeah.
So I put it together, I assembled it. I made like 6 different designs. I put it over the table and we decided with the team to go with one. It took about like a year and a half to assemble it, like fabricate it, and I put it to work and then mold again and say, how was this happening? And then over time, I fixed it. I figured out the temperature, water irrigation, water temperature, because sometimes you get super cold water, super hot water, and we fixed all that stuff. Aeration, I did so like the fine tuning. And at the end, after I would say like a couple months, I was able to say that it's a mold-free guarantee farm,
Wow.
which I'm very proud. Now,
What was the biggest difference when people think of container farms? We've had conversations before, people growing leafy greens. Obviously, Farmbox specializes in the mushroom containers. How different is the technology when you're thinking about a container farm for leafy greens versus a container farm for mushrooms versus a container farm for fodder? What are the things you need to think about differently?
that's a good question. The main difference, I would say, it's more about the layout, definitely the layout of how to, well, the mushrooms, let's keep mushrooms aside because that is another angle. But in the hydroponic world, the vertical farm, it's saying vertical is a totally different layout, totally different design. What I put together was like layers of trays. So hole in the middle and trays, 7 shelves, where I figured it out that one of the best approaches to produce fodder is with a subrogation system. So the misting systems in general, they generate a lot of humidity. And humidity is something that you have to fight all the time in order to prevent the mold issues. So The super irrigation, is one. So 7 shelves super irrigated on 6 sections. So I could seed and then seed one rack and then the next day seed the other one and so on. So then you have a cycle that you're able to harvest every single day. Big difference with the other vertical farm, not only temperature and humidity, I would say that it's like the same, but irrigation schedule. The vertical farming with leafy greens, you need nutrients. In fodder, you don't need any nutrients at all. That is something that I learned as well there, because I was trying to put some nutrients. Maybe you can like increase the protein on the fodder, something like that. But it is not. Like, since the plant is so young in 7 day cycle process, that they are not able to pick up any nutrients from the water at all. So at the end, it's potable water, drinkable water, and then seeds. And you have to have a good, that's the thing. That's the key of it. And I would say that the other 50% of the problems of how, like, or why mold can appear, it's because it's the operate, how you treat the things, how you clean everything. And that is very important to follow all the instructions of the SOPs inside the systems to make it work.
I'm curious, Joaquin, when you try to tackle a problem like that, coming from an engineering background, I imagine as an engineer, you're always thinking of like solutions and how to fix problems, and that's just the way that your mind works. Where do you draw your inspiration from when it comes to like tackling problems like this? Do you need to go for like long walks with no interruptions, or like where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, doing some research. I mean, in my career, there's a lot of research that you had to make. There's a lot of like problem solving. I love that. Trial and error. That is one thing that you have to, in this industry, you have to try things, and it doesn't work, you try another thing, and it doesn't work, you try another. So that is, and you have to learn from all those errors in order to not repeat them, of course. But that is one thing, and be like disciplined in those trial and error, because if you lose something, you might repeat something else that it's making the problem. So you have to do like trial and error, like very with a good methodology, and then you can solve all these issues.
Where did you learn that discipline from? Or who did you learn that discipline from?
Honestly, like self-motivated, I would say that a lot comes from my dad.
Okay.
My dad is an engineer, and he always like me and inventing stuff, like trying to figure it out, like trying to fix stuff at the house, at the ranch, different things. So he was like, if there's a problem, we have to solve it. He's like, start drawing stuff. And yeah, there's a tool here. So he loves to go like to Home Depot and see all the stuff for different things that are there. They can use for irrigation and different things. So that is basically my bigger inspiration.
I'm a child of the 80s, so sometimes people call that the MacGyver approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Same here.
And so obviously, when you see problems like that, you figure out the best solution for the problem, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there was no other option. When you have no other option, just fix it, no matter what. You start to create it.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And so talk about the transition from Farm Box to Eleusis, how that happened.
Yeah. So the last year working for Farmbox, I worked with so many clients, so many people. Like, I did some trials with the Denver Zoo, for instance. That they were trying out the fodder, doing all this lab analysis and different things. We were feeding their giraffes and multiple animals over there.
Is there a difference in fodder for all the different types of animals? Obviously, we talked a lot about horses and people talk about cattle fodder. Is giraffe fodder different?
No, it's the same product. It's the same product. So fodder is something that you made out of any kind of grain, honestly. But the best grain for it is barley. So barley is the best because it sprouts faster than any other grain. And also it has this ability to generate, the protein content of it. It has to be low in order to sprout faster, because low protein means that it can be hydrated very fast, and that is sprout faster,
Okay.
right? Same with wheat. Wheat works very well as well. Other grains are typically lighter, than these other grains. So we typically use barley. And for barley, for all the animals that we have fed, barley is the one that we have been done.
I know people talk a lot about, barley for fodder. Are there different strains of barley, or is there just one kind? Or I imagine there's different types, just like wheat, probably.
Yeah, there are multiple species or not species, but varieties, right? The variety that it works best for fodder, it's the variety that comes to malting companies for the same reason. Because if you're like working with this type of grain that goes to malting and goes to beer at the end of the day, it's a seed that needs to be low in protein. If you're using other type of seeds, like seeds that goes to feeding animals with it, and seed that goes to pastures and stuff like that, it's a really different seed because it's more consistent. It's hard to break it. So malting companies and malting suppliers are the best for these purposes, for sure.
Okay. And so, yeah, you were talking about the transition to Eleusis.
Yes. I was looking at these different charts that relate back. So the last year I was trying to obviously commercialize this container, and there's a lot of interest out there to get fodder to feed your animals, because of the sustainability metrics, because of so many things, so many benefits on the nutritional side, so many things. So a lot of people are very interested, but the containerized solution is for some of them, for the industry. The containerized solution that we put together was able to produce 850 pounds a day, which basically, if you look at the industry, you can feed 30 cows,
Okay.
35 horses, stuff like that.
So that's
it's not-
850 pounds per container?
Yeah. So I was talking to many ranchers that they have like 200 head cattle. So for that, you need like 8 containers. So putting one container next to another at some point doesn't make sense. Maybe 2, it's okay. 3, you start to think about, because every container has their own system, their own way of farming and all this stuff. So at the end, we were looking for something more industrial. And I was looking around, getting back to my context when I was studying with this in Chile, and I got back to Eleusis. I met Rafael, who is the CEO and owner of Eleusis. He's in Madrid, in Spain, because he had a facility in Chile. And I visited it in 2018, around that. And I met the guy that represent Eleusis in Chile. So I went to his facility and I found it like amazing. It was like the go-to technology that we want to have. But at that point, I was thinking like in little. I was thinking in something that we can move around in modular farms, which is okay. So modular farms are great, but it's not for everybody, So in this case, in the United States, it was like, there's a way to provide fodder systems and cover the whole and satisfy the whole industry, from people that have 200, 500 cows to 1,500, 5,000, and we can make those systems accordingly the head of animals that you have. And that it's something that really moved me. I was like, okay, what's the price? And it was a reasonable price for the amount of pounds of fodder that you can produce. So I went to Spain, met the guy, and came back with the contract signed of the representation of North America. And since then, I started working on Leave Behind Farm Bucks. I mean, on January this year, I started with Eleusis Feed, which is a branch of Eleusis International, and we're trying to commercialize this in the States.
What was the biggest, there's probably several things, when you say you start moving to industrial level hydroponic fodder systems, but just what are some of the basics that to help the listener understand like how these systems work? Like when you're moving from a container, you said it was cost prohibitive and maybe just like farm prohibitive to have 8 containers on the farm. What do you get now with a system like Eleusis Feed?
So first of all, I would like to mention Eleusis have 40 years of experience in this technology. Okay, so they started 1985, with a very unique technology, which is patented. And what you get into your question is like the flexibility of these systems are amazing in terms of like somebody that has an old barn that they want to use to produce hydroponic fodder. There's definitely a way to do it. There's a way that this technology has to enclose the room with sandwich panels with insulation in it and create the CEA inside this room. And we can cover this room with racks. And each rack will produce 1,100 pounds of fodder per day.
Wow.
And that flexibility is something that I really love because I heard so many stories about people that have existing structures and stuff like that. And that is something that we can go ahead and start building. You don't need to build it from scratch. Besides that, the workflow of it's great because it's something that you build, it could be a big facility. I mean, obviously we offer systems from 500 pounds a day to the biggest one that we're coding right now for a project in Georgia is going to be 400 tons a day system. So that for you to make an idea is like for 40,000 heads.
Wow.
Obviously they're spread in different like ranches around it. Working with this group, we're going to put together a fodder hub where they can deliver all this fodder to these different ranches around it. So that is basically the range that we can manage. Now, obviously, when you get a system that is, let's call it like 5,000 pounds a day system, you have a warehouse where it's not too big, could be around 1,000 square feet. Then the workflow inside is very cool because you have space. How it works is basically there are 8 shelves on each rack. And the cool thing about this particular valve that they have is that everything works under like gravity. So the water doesn't need you don't need a pressurized system or pressurized connections to each rack. It's just gravity that's putting water on the top of it. And it's like flooding shelves by shelf. We're reusing the water. We are not recycling it. We're reusing it. And then the residual water is about like foods. But with that said, it's something, as I mentioned, like you can have all these spaces that you can cover it with racks, with towers. And then on the preparation room, we put the hoppers and we put something that is very cool, which is the tree washing machine. So this phrase you have to harvest manually, right? When you harvest it, you put it upside down, you pass it through this tray washing machine, and it avoids a lot of time working on the washing, and you don't need a brush or something like this, just this machine. And just for you to make an idea, and that project will be, so 5,000 will be $140,000.
Okay.
Like built here. So it's pretty competitive. And at the same time, you have uniform fire every single day. That's the thing. So uniformity is very important for ranchers in general, and consistency. Feed security at the end is something that they were looking for. So that's why I get very motivated to provide the system at scale as well.
What's been the response to maybe customers that you've spoken with, or people you've spoken with, or farmers you've spoken with in the past, when you only had the opportunity to talk about a container system? Now you're having conversations about the Eleusis feed system. Is there a better fit now? You can have much more informed conversations because the Eleusis feed is exactly what they need?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when we talk about fodder itself, like the final product, obviously now since I've been like a decade in this industry, I can talk about it with much more authority than before. That's one thing. And I've seen all the different actors at all the different companies around the world that produce fodder, that I can compare all these different like system, how they produce it, how they manage it, how they control the environment and stuff like that. And I can definitely have a nice conversation about, okay, Eleusis, what it brings to you, unbreakable parts, reliable system, a system that doesn't break. That says a lot. And a system that actually is meant to be in a ranch. It's sometimes I feel like some companies, they try to invest in designers, in engineers and stuff like that. Like as the fodder is a rocket, which is not like the right approach, I would say, because it's at the end of the day, these projects and these farms, they will land in a ranch. So the skilled labor of ranch is not always like the very high skilled labor. You don't have to have an engineer to run
Yeah,
it. You
yeah,
need a robust, skilled labor, and these systems are very thoughtful on that in that sense. We develop these systems that are very didactic, squeeze that are very didactic. So if something doesn't work or something is not running, it has just a cross on top of it. So you see the image of the fan, for instance, like with a cross on
okay.
top of it. So that is a big difference too.
When you think about the opportunities that exist in the United States, you obviously have a lot of history because Eleusis has been global, probably, like you said, for 40 years. So there's a lot of, things that have tried and trial and error. So you're getting the
Mhm.
benefit now of all the things they've tried in other countries, implementations, feedback from farmers. How has that been helpful for you, knowing that you have a lot of experience to build upon when you're having these conversations?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that is one of our main approaches, I would say. Like when we're talking to people and ranchers, again, we're talking with authority because we have been in the industry for 40 years. So we have over 400 installations out there. Some of them are running, some of them are not because of multiple things could happen in a ranch. But for the majority, they have very good experience applying fodder into their different diets. And depending where you are, because it depends on the industry. Some people produce fodder from dairies or from beef, cattle. One of our biggest facilities is in Leon. It's 235 tons a day, which is a completely different layout than the normal ones that we're talking vertical. This is not vertical. And it was built along with the energy production engines. So they were using that heat to heat up their greenhouse where they put this fodder on the ground. There's so many experience out there, and the reaction of the animals, the improving infertility, for instance, in cows and dairy
Oh,
cows,
wow.
avoiding, with cows, if we talk about dairies, like if you are avoiding like acidosis frames, episodes, colics and stuff like that. These are like, for the majority of these things are experiences where we talk to these clients, these potential clients that will say, yeah, this is what you can get. Now, that is the other challenge too. Like talk to these people and they have been producing feed and feed animals for generations in a way that whenever you're presenting a new technology, it's hard. Like that traditional mindset, it's very hard to break. It's like they are very, not stubborn, but it's like,
They're very set in their ways.
yes. And so that's why it's important, like new generation from these farms and these ranches, they are adopting more technology because of the lack of labor, first of all. And other is like, yeah, they want to try new things. Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest education piece for them if they're, like you said, if they're used to feeding cattle the traditional way? You have to explain the benefits of hydroponic fodder to them, or like you said, some of the benefits that they may not even be aware of.
Yeah. Most of it is like, this is not rocket science. Again, it's a manual thing. You can have a fully automated system, but it's something that you can train on and be comfortable with the system. Then how to apply the fodder. So we can, with some nutritionists to back us up, that people that have been working with fodder for a long time, those nutritionists, they know how to apply fodder, how to formulate the diets in order to work. So at the end, you have to convince them to adopt a new thing, but not a machine that you have to base. It's a machine that actually helps. It's a tool, or feed secure. It's a tool that you can use every single day of the year, no matter what the season is, or no matter what is happening out there. The farm and the system will work and will provide the clean nutrition for your cattle, for your herd. So that is one of the key points here. Like feed security, it's something that they really like, they really want, because they struggle. Like sometimes they're like COVID and the hay spikes up, or different like natural disaster, or somehow you're born full of hay, it's down. Whenever you have this system, you can rely on this consistency and this nutrition that you will have every single day.
Who would be like an ideal client for Eleusis? Is there someone that maybe it just, therefore it would be too small and they may not be ready for it? Or when you think about, who can benefit the most from an Eleusis feed system, what comes to mind?
Who can benefit from, who can benefit the most? Well, people that are located in drought areas, people that are struggling with water. There's some incentives out there of the government, like retiring wells. So they will pay you to retire a well because the water is a critical issue,
Wow.
you know, critical issue. So those, like, especially in the Western states, I think that is more needed. Now I had like recently, like today, a conversation with a guy in Utah, and you feel like Utah, they're kind of in the north and they could have like a lot of mountains and stuff. And you will see like Utah with full of water, but it's not. There's massive drought. Like I talked to the guy in rain in April, and just recently, like last week,
Wow.
a little bit of rain, and that was it. So those places are looking a lot for this type of technologies in order to reduce the amount of water they use for the crops. With a fodder system, you use like 95% less water than traditional farming. So we're here to help them for sure.
So what's a typical day for you look like?
A typical day, I must say, I'm all over the place, honestly, Harry. This is another company I have to run completely. Obviously, we have a team so we're training a sales team. We have people working in Canada, people working in multiple states. I'm in Austin, Texas. We recently moved here in part because we are, I would say, close a deal with the ranch around the area. So it's was very convenient to move here, taking care of the marketing, taking care of the PR, same way that you like separate. Same thing, like, hey, the offer, okay, let's set this up. So typically start with exercise and then taking care of everything.
Yeah, taking care of of your body and mind first. That's probably important.
Yep, exactly.
It seems like you're wearing a lot of different hats. What's a tough question you've had to ask yourself recently?
Oh, I mean, that's tough. If I want to continue doing this, that is one thing. Like, as an entrepreneur, I'm telling you, like, it's a day-to-day, back-to-back days, like consistency. Like, you're thinking about it, this is your project going, it's your project going somewhere else. And two girls now to take care of, like, this is something that I need to keep pushing. And honestly, after all this time working on this, with the discipline and the perseverance of, keep pushing because you really believe that this is something that can change a little bit the livestock industry, and how we feed animals in a sustainable way. It's something that really moves me. And sometimes it made me awake during the night too. So am I convinced that this is the way to do it? Obviously, I understand it's not for everybody, but I definitely believe that I can help a lot of people.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate as an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't ever turn off. You wake up in the morning and you're already thinking about the 6 things you got to do that day, and you just have to prioritize. I've been making more of an effort to make sure the first thing I do is like some sort of meditation or some sort of like workout, because if not, the day just gets away from you.
That's a key.
Yeah.
That's a key. I'm a father too, so I have to take care of these girls, and that filled my heart for sure.
What's been the biggest shift in moving to the US and Austin, Texas?
Well, honestly, I moved like a month ago. So it's everything is so new. Now I miss the mountains like a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I was talking to my wife, like the mountains, we're in Boulder, so we're like right there, You can see the mountains every single day. And now this is a little bit flat. We have hills here, which is awesome. Something that I really like. It's everything is green, like all the trees and stuff. Neighborhoods are so nice. But I moved, I think, in the right time because it's October. I moved in October, the end of October, so the temperatures are pretty nice now. I'm a little bit concerned about summer, but we'll see. We're trying to explore out there. I really like the river passing through Austin. It's a cool city. It has a lot of life, and it's a big city. I didn't know it's 2 million people here. It's great. So far the Tex-Mex is good. Barbecue is good. Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you miss about Chile?
Well, obviously family.
Yeah.
There is one of the things that at some point I would definitely come back to Chile. We have a lot of stuff to do here first, but I will definitely want to go back because since I was part of a big family. My parents, they have a lot of siblings as well. So I have like dozens of cousins on each side. So I grew up with cousins and I want to give my kids like the same experience, So that is something my brothers, so we have in total, my parents, they have already like 12 grandsons.
Wow.
So that is something I want to, obviously we try to go to Chile as much as possible so they can be with the cousins and everything. But that is something that we miss a lot.
So as we wrap up here, Joaquin, I know you've been trying to make an effort. You connected with Sepper, and I don't know how active you are in going to conferences, but have you been able to network with other people in the industry, other people in the indoor farming industry? I'm curious what your experience has been like there.
With a lot of people that are in the same industries of races, with the Eleusis feed, what we try to do as well is to complement vertical farming of the Livestock side, because Fodder obviously is vertical farming too, vertical pastures. But on the vertical side, we partner with a company, it's called Harvest Today. I don't know if you have heard about them.
Yes.
They're very cool, and the system's really cool because we're looking at some projects to put some fodder systems to work along with a vertical farm and on an industrial way as well. Then a mushroom systems and a rooted crop system. So that is our partner to develop those projects. So those guys are pretty cool. And we're in the same industry, so we share a lot of things and they can go at scale too. So they have redesigned part of this walls that they built so they can fill up like big warehouses with these walls, and it could work very nice with those guys. And then a lot of invitations from, Dubai and the Middle East. I have some connections in Jordan that they are looking at some regenerative agriculture, wheat fodder. So install fodder systems in order to free some of the land that they have to regenerate it. That is one thing. Jordan, we have a project that are looking over there because now I try to get most of my time here in the US, but whenever we have clients like overseas, we take them because they're looking for these solutions. So in Jordan, in Qatar, I have another one over there. But overall, I like to connect with all these different personalities in the industry. I think it's great. I think it's going the right way in order to have less complicated systems that actually works, that actually delivers what they deliver, and clean fluid. That's the other big topic. Clean feed for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And so I appreciate you coming on, connecting with us. If you need connections in Dubai, Sepper's in Dubai, he can obviously help you make some introductions for people there. If that's something that's needed or you see an opportunity there, definitely let us know. It's been interesting if you think back and look back at your journey, how you started on a farm, your experience with horses in this environment, working on a ranch, but then tied into your engineering background and this obvious drive, this natural curiosity that I've sort of kind of interpreted from this conversation. It feels like all the pieces came together, your experience at FarmBox and your experience with your early fodder solution. So it feels like all the pieces came together to put you in the right place at the right time with Eleusis.
It's
And it feels like now you're doing what you were meant to do. And it probably wouldn't have been possible if you haven't had all these other experiences.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that is part of my mission too, I guess, with Eleusis, like bring feed security to all ranchers around not only the US, Canada as well, but North America in general and the world. That's what really motivates me. And yeah, to get independent of the climate, be sustainable.
It's so interesting because a lot of people we have conversations here about food security, but if people understand where their food comes from, and a lot of it comes from like the cattle, you probably need feed security before you get the food security. So they go
Yeah.
hand in hand.
Totally.
But
There's a lot of innovations in the vertical farm for leafy greens to feed humans. But then, yeah, the ranchers are like, we're leaving them behind, or overlook them. So this is a way to give them an opportunity and use less water, use less land, and keep the businesses alive. That's very important because people that what they know that they do is ranching. It's raising cattle, raising horses, and if they all of a sudden got struck by a drought, their business is gone, and this is a tool to fix that. So definitely reach out to me anytime. So for all the listeners, like just feed.com is our website. Fill out the form, let's connect on LinkedIn. And yeah, call me anytime. We're open to have any conversation with different clients, and hopefully that we can fit tailor-made fodder system to anybody.
yeah, we'll make sure those links are in the show notes. And Eleusis is spelled ELEUSISV.com. I'll have that link and I'll have your LinkedIn, and we'll put those in the show notes. Make sure people can get in contact with you. Thanks again for your time, Joaquin. I really appreciate and enjoy this conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much, Harry.